Arcadia TV. The upcoming programs are Deep Sea Live, Forest Night Hike, Sky Watching, and paid programming. With that being said, we'll now be watching Deep Sea Live. This is the opening to the first video of the Arcadia Analog horror series found on the channel Chilling Abyss. To give a little bit more detail about what the series is about, it's about a research station attempting to make contact with something out in the universe, but it ended with them opening a potential portal that leads to unspeakable horrors that are now leaking into our world. If you're interested, sit back, relax, and let's begin exploring the Arcadia Analog horror series. Deep Sea Live. As I mentioned before, the program we'll be watching is Deep Sea Live, a highly anticipated premiere. Deep Blue Foundation and Spectrum Innovations are generous sponsors, and this premiere will be an incredible never-seen-before experience that will bring the viewers into the deep ocean's mysterious depths. How can they do this? With their new state-of-the-art cameras and a vessel which is operated by a single individual. And the place that we'll be taken to is the pit. It's a seemingly bottomless hole with unknown depths. Obviously it's dark and all we can hear is the sound of the water around the vessel. At some point at 10:08 we see text saying whales, but I don't exactly see anything personally. And at 10:22 a creepy aquatic creature zips by. It's a dragonfish. Then at 10:31 there's an unknown creature spotted, which I couldn't see either. 10:43 we see glowing eyes, and at 10:54 we hear clunking sounds of what I believe is metal. After this there was a system malfunction and an attempt to reboot it, which worked, but the surroundings were still dark. Then there was text saying, "Recall the sub now," meaning obviously something bad is happening. The danger only became more apparent when the text continued on with this, "Please help me." It seems like the person operating the submarine isn't having a great time. After this, the creature with glowing eyes charged forward and the broadcast stopped, claiming technical difficulties. The video then ends there, and this is the first video of the series. Setting up a mystery within the sea that is an unknown creature that is highly dangerous. But as long as we don't enter the water, we should be fine, right? Yeah, no. Moving on to the next video. Mythical Creatures. It opens with a warning stating that despite what parents say, monsters are indeed real and can cause harm. It also states that if you or someone you know has recently come into contact with an unusual entity, it's best to notify your local authorities immediately. After the warning, we move on to the Midnight Safety Guide. Numerous entities such as mythical creatures have been documented over the years, and many of their forms can appear humanoid. These sneaky entities usually appear at night behind doors or windows, and they try to capture your attention. The useful tip we get is to stay quiet because the entities might leave after a while. However, if you engage with the entity, they'll become aware of you. The video then glitches and cuts, and for a moment, I think I saw the date December 27th, 1992. The video then proceeds to show us footage of someone pointing a flashlight towards a door. We hear knocking coming from the door that only gets louder, and then we hear a high-pitched voice questioning who's there. The knocking then stopped, and the voice continued to question the situation. Returning back to the guide, it goes on to explain that the entities will offer something desirable. It's recommended not to accept these offers, however, refusing the offer might make the creature more hostile. Its physical form will begin to warp and decay over time. Back to the footage of the door, it's slowly opening and there's the sound of whisperings. I couldn't fully understand what was being whispered, but I think whoever is behind the door is calling for the person to come closer. Back to the guide, we get told that if you survive for 30 days, the creature will vanish and leave behind a marking. In addition to that, we learned that there were 3 instances of people who managed to survive the 30 days, which means your chances of living through an encounter doesn't seem that high. Back to the footage from before, we see the door opening even more and a creature's head popping out before hearing a scream, and we return back to the guide's ending scene. And this was the end of the second video in the series. Not only is the water dangerous, but so is the land. Try your best to ignore these creatures, but even so, I doubt you'll be safe even if you try ignoring their attention. Now the next video. Arcadia Apology. This video is a response to the Deep Sea Live broadcast, and as the title states, it's an apology from the Arcadia team, apologizing for the delayed response to this incident and for frightening the viewers. Since Arcadia TV is meant to be a safe space to unwind, they plan to earn back the trust from the viewers again and hope the viewers will continue watching their programs. Pretty simple and nice, right? The video then cuts to muffled audio and text reading, "This is just the beginning. There's more to come." How ominous. The Crying Cave. First, we hear the sounds of nature and see a view of the trees before spotting something swooping down in the top corner. After this is a black screen with text reading, "A body was found near on July 19th. A folded missing persons poster and a video camera were found close to the body." We also get shown the missing poster with the 3 individuals, Sarah, Jack, and Daniel, who were last seen on July 17th entering the Crying Cave. However, the mysterious thing was that these teenagers were never reported missing. Sarah and Daniel were found with their families while Jack just never existed. We then move on to footage on July 18th, 1988, which shows us someone inside of a cave hearing a noise and calling out to it. The cameraman follows after the noise, and it only sounds more disturbing the closer he gets, before cutting to black for a second then seeing the cameraman running away. After this, we see a long stretch with a light at the end and the cameraman fell in or was sucked into it. Everything turns dark during this, but we do hear the audio. It almost sounds like the camera is spinning and we hear wind before the sudden impact of it hitting the ground. But the camera wasn't the only thing that hit the ground. If you remember what we saw in the beginning, that was the cameraman falling from the sky, so he splattered on the floor. Youch. The signal. Opening with a notice, we learn that the tape we'll be seeing is a reconstruction of an event that happened at Research Station Bravo during 1980 to 1983. The footage was found in the station, but it's damaged, so many of the contents was lost. We then see a photo in the name Dr. John Walker, who develops the first machine that can send and receive signals from the universe. Obviously, the goal with this machine is to get a response from whatever's out there in the universe. Proceeding with the footage is February 3rd, 1980, and we see a circle expanding along with a dot in the center. Off to the side is another dot with another expanding circle. I'm assuming this is to show us that a message was sent and received. At 11:23, the first message reads, "Hello world," which gets followed up with, "Wow." There's been a few days of communication and they're conducting the 3-image test in which they ask for images of nature, a dog, and themselves. These are the images that were provided: nature, dog, themselves. Pretty normal, so they decided to collaborate with them to establish travel between universes. November 26, 1981, there is now a third dot. A new and strange signal. The footage glitches a bit with strange audio before showing the chat. "Hello? Are you receiving me? Yes. Are you human? I don't know about you, but that makes me feel unsettled." Anyways, the two had a series of bizarre discussions before proceeding on with a 3-image test with this new signal. These are the following images: nature, dog, themselves. Yeah, something's clearly off about this. We return to the text and it reads, "Connection to the world is immediately terminated." Honestly, it's probably for the best that they only focus on the other responder that seems normal. Anyways, we then learn that the 3 years of cooperation with PW1 led to the completion of the machine that will connect their worlds, and the day has finally arrived. December 23rd, 1983, we see the chat and the two are ready to make the connection. Everything was running smoothly until the third signal that they tried terminating the connection with started interfering. In the chat, we can see the two panicking and they can't seem to stop it. The connection happened, and when the circle expanded, we see multiple dots. The chat opens again. "We see you. The doors to your world are open. Who knows what may enter?" And with that final message, the video ends, leaving us with obvious anxiety. Now I'm starting to understand the unusual things that were spotted earlier. A gateway of unspeakable horrors is leaking in. And to discover more about this, we need to proceed forward. Interference. It opens with the news. During 6:30 a.m., we see a live broadcast with text. There was a late-night explosion in northern Alaska which sent a shockwave and a loud blast that caused windows to shatter and doors to rattle for hundreds of miles. There's also been television interference in the region and a static face appearing. Speaking of which, we see a smiling face with text reading, "Hello world. You do not realize the consequences of your actions. We will not interfere with what is coming. We will not help. This is not a warning. This is your death sentence. We will watch you suffer." How frightening! Afterwards, we see breaking news and learn that the explosion's origins was a research station operated by Adams Laboratories. This must be connected to the previous video in the aftermath of the connection between the worlds. Speaking of the aftermath, the next few videos gives us more details. Emergency Broadcast System. This emergency broadcast is issuing a mandatory evacuation for the entirety of the northern region of Alaska. Everyone must head south immediately and avoid any unusual persons or objects. I'm sure this must be very frightening for the residents, but it only gets worse because there's a time limit. They only have 72 hours to evacuate or they'll end up shot because everyone that's still there will be assumed hostile. This is when the timer appeared and the video ends. The Great North Alaskan Disaster. The next video opens with Arcadia Home Entertainment, in which we get presented with The Great Northern Alaskan Disaster, the same title as the video. The footage that we'll be seeing is approved by the United States government, and this footage has never been shown to the public until now. With that being said, we proceed with footage of a man before cutting away to a title screen, The Catalyst. The date is December 23rd of 1983, and the footage shows that the time was 10:28. A person is seemingly playing a game when suddenly through the window we see a bright light. It was the explosion that we already learned about. After that explosion, there was a distress call, and in the footage we hear the recording of it. The call was from Ian Parker, and the panic in his voice was obvious. He's calling from the research station and pleading for a response and even cries out that the lab is gone. Honestly, it sounds like the man is having a mental breakdown, and I feel really bad for him. If you'd listen to the recording, you'd understand what I mean. Anyways, he's clearly confused about what to do and struggling to breathe until suddenly something on his end caused him to scream out. The recording ends there, and we now move on to evacuation. December 25th, 1983, we see footage of someone in a dark room watching the emergency broadcast from the previous video. Obviously, that was Christmas Day when everyone needed to evacuate the region, and there were flyers put up to reach as many people as they can, but unfortunately, when 2 planes disappeared during the drop routine, they had to stop this. After that, we see more footage, and there was a wildfire outside along with the emergency broadcast playing in the background. Luckily, many people were able to evacuate, but obviously not all because hundreds of people went missing. So what does the government have to say about this? They explained due to unforeseen hazards in North Alaska, the region is strictly prohibited to enter. Next up, the wall. During this segment, we learn about Alaskan's wildlife. Its landscape has changed drastically. Many of the species went south due to the Great Animal Migration of '84, and it's a good thing they moved because a wall was constructed to alienate the north from the south. The wall stretches across Alaska and runs along the Canadian border, and there's a military patrolling the area and preventing entry. It's illegal to film or take photos of the wall without permission, and the reason for this is to protect us from the unknown. Shoot, that's my biggest fear! Thanks, I guess. Now the final segment. The footage of the wall! Yay! During this, we can hear roaring and the sound of thunder before the video starts to static and cut away to the view of the moon. There's a noticeable light beside the moon, and the video ends there. Quick pause, honestly it makes me giggle that the government's solution to this potential portal to a dimension of unspeakable horrors was to build a huge wall around it. That's an interesting idea. Anyways, the next video. Exclusion Zone Safety. This is the latest entry to the series, and it opens with a password being entered. Once entered, it leads to an incident report on the date 10/3/89, and the location is Alaska. One male was injured and one female was missing. Ethan Marshall and Chloe Marshall. The 34-year-old Ethan isn't in the best health, while the 11-year-old Chloe's status is unknown. After this, data transfer was completed, and we move on to Adam's laboratory. It's an employee training tape, specifically the third one, and only meant for those with red clearance, and it's about Exclusion Safety Zone. Specifically information about the safety precautions when inside the zone. We'll also be focusing on fissures. We then see a map and see how hectic it is on the other side of the wall after the first year. It's quite crowded. Now, what are fissures? A type of phenomenon that only occurs within the exclusion zone. They're extremely dangerous and can cause serious injuries or death. Type 1, stable fissures. Type 2, unstable fissures. Fissures are what links our world to the unknown. Unstable fissures have a short lifespan and last a couple of milliseconds, but are more common than stable fissures. Stable fissures, on the other hand, last longer, up to a couple of minutes or even a few years, but are rare. Only 15 were documented and 4 are still active to this day. The oldest one is located in Ground Zero, where everything started. We then cut to an employee status report, all from the research station, and get a list of the names and their status. We see that a few of them are missing. Now, how are fissures detected? By carrying an electrostatic field detector at all times. Once the EFD is missing, you must look for signs such as an overwhelming sense of dread or fear, insects and animals going silent around you, an increased electrostatic activity, the hair on your head rising, and strange sounds coming from unknown origins. But once you hear strange sounds, it might be too late for you. And why are these things dangerous? Oh, I don't know. When it strikes in a very violent manner. During this explanation, we see a dot in the center on the screen with the title The Eye, and this will force air around it to cause a sonic boom. The dot vibrates and a circle appears around it, and it's called corona. Anything within the corona will be transported and replaced with something from the unknown. Not only that, but these things have the ability to transport anything from the abyss, but usually they're no bigger than the size of an average male. But usually, commonly found things from fissures are small items such as journals or tapes. Honestly, this makes me question if most of the tapes we've been seeing are from fissures. That's unnerving. Anyways, recently there's been an increase in biological entities, and if it wasn't obvious, never interact with these objects or entities, and never enter a fissure. You'll never return. And in the end, we see a message reading, "The data was correct. The area is expanding. Get everyone in the response program ready. Prepare to inform the public." All I can say is, yikes. Sometimes the unknown should just stay the unknown, but humans' curiosity is too strong, and that tends to lead us to our doom. Anyways, let's summarize. A research station in northern Alaska, which is operated by Adams Laboratories, made contact with two things in the universe. One relatively normal and the other strange. The research station, they made a connection between them and the other world, but the third party, who was seen as strange, interfered with the connection and caused problems in the research station. The lab was gone, and there was a huge explosion which was noticed for miles. Likely a rift in reality was opened, and the things from the unknown are starting to leak into our world. Evacuations were performed, and there was an attempt to isolate the northern area, but fissures are causing a bit of a problem. Now there's creatures in the world who were once considered myths, but they're now real, and portals are now killing people. Yikes. What's the moral of the story? Don't look around or you'll find out. Curiosity killed the cat? Don't trust the unknown within the universe? Yeah. Anyways, this concludes the series, but this isn't the end. I'm sure more videos will be posted soon, and if you're interested to keep up with the series, link in the description. And I have a theory that I'm just going to throw in here. I don't know if this seems like a cliche, but I wouldn't be surprised if people who went missing suddenly come back, but they're uncanny or strange or different or whatever. I don't know if that's what the next video is going to be about, but obviously something big is going to happen because the public needs to be notified soon. Or maybe it will be the case of the mist. It's stated that fishers can only bring things that are as large as an average man, but what if they evolved enough to bring massive creatures? Who knows? We just have to wait and see. And as always, my name is Rupa Estrella. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the funny little notification thing. I also have a Twitter if you want to see me post dumb stuff. And I hope you have a good day. I better not catch you dying on me. Bye.